Can I get a countdown? 10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! The Tablets of Holath are out. The gates of the city of Holath have opened. As you can see, I have just published the first English translation of Shokrafian literature. Oh. Okay, so a little bit about the project. I am Guy. I am the lead researcher and translator. Today with me, I have Cleo Rinofner, our artistic director. Also, we have a couple of new recruits to the research team. We have two astro-musicologists, Shiri, Riseman, and Akov, who were also very kind to host this event. So thank you very much. All right. So as I said, this is a translation project. These are the first translations to English of Shokrafian literature. You might be asking yourself, what is Shokrafian literature? So Shokrafian literature is the literature of the Shokrafians. Who are the Shokrafians? They're the residents of the Shokrafian Empire. Before going into the Shokrafian Empire and their history and what we know about them and what we do not know about them yet, I'll talk a little bit about the project. You can go to bookofholes.art and you can read the whole book for free. This is an open source project, which means we're always on the look for researchers. If anyone wants to join the research team, please contact me at research@shufu.studio. So yeah, as you can see, this is old school internet where the pure HTML website. So you can go down just to see like the structure of the book. So this is the prologue. We have amazing art curated by our artistic director, Cleo. She will soon give an explanation about her process. But as you can see, this is an ancient text. This is like, in a way, sort of a biblical text, not only mythological. It's the oldest consecutively preserved text from the first age of the Shokrafian Empire. The Shokrafian Empire has a long history of overall 6 ages, which span over hundreds of thousands of years. So it's like a scope of civilization that is hard for us even to grasp. And this text, it's not only Shokrafian history and mythology, it's also the most sacred text for all Farfaist religions. What are Farfaist religions? Farfaist religions are religions where the main deity is Farfa. Who is Farfa? Don't worry, we'll get there. So as you can see, we have provided you with a footnote, some translation comments, because it's really a hard language to translate from. While we are 3-dimensional beings, the Shokrafians are 4-dimensional beings, which means the writing system is 3-dimensional. This is a bit complicated for us to grasp, of course, so we're doing our best translating these concepts into modern-day English. Yeah, I think you can go back. So this is the book. I hope you'll find this interesting enough to go ahead and read it. I think it got some really fascinating stuff to tell us about both the Shokrafians and about ourselves. So we're currently a small team of translation, artistic direction, and editing. We were now joined by 2 astro-musicologists, and of course we hope that more people will join us in the near future. As you can see, there's also Shokrafian music. After my presentation, Cleo will give a presentation, and then we'll have a presentation by our 2 astro-musicologists who will demonstrate some of this music and will let us know how they came up with this music during their research. A little bit about the Shokrafian Empire. So as I said, it spans hundreds of thousands of years. I'll give a short, brief history. So we have the first age where this piece takes place. The first age is basically their like prehistory. The creatures you can see here in the images, these are the proto-Shokrafians. They all went extinct by the end of the first age, which means the first age is basically the time where the seeds for the Shokrafian culture were planted, but they never blossomed until the second age. The second age had 5 major civilizations. I'm sorry, I'll just talk briefly about the first major civilization, the civilization of Holath. So that's the city of the prophets, where they made their grand prophecies of the Shokrafian Empire to come. And their main prophet was the Prophet Goareth, who was the ambassador of Farfa upon every land. So Farfa, the deity of heat and light, they basically were in a dominance war with the other deities, mainly Yaketh, who was the deity of the land, Jau, deity of water, and Kamai, who was the deity of how would you translate it into English? Betrayal. Goareth was the ambassador of Farfa upon all lands, and he basically spread the prophecies and the ideas of Farfa around the land, and these ideas were basically the basis for the philosophy of both, again, all Farfaist religions and the Shokrafian Empire itself. So the second age was an age of 5 major civilizations. Some of them grew to be like multi-planetary civilizations with like hundreds of billions of people. They warred against each other, these civilizations. Some of them have enslaved each other. So it's like wars on a scale that we cannot even fathom, like interplanetary wars. In the third age, a new ambassador for Farfa came. This was the monarch Uto, and he basically united all the different civilizations into the Shokrafian civilization. It wasn't called the Shokrafian civilization still, the third age. In the fourth age, a new monarch came. He was basically the heir of the monarch Uto. This was the Shokraf. And the Shokraf has been ruling ever since the middle of the fourth age. During the fifth age was basically like the most successful age of the Shokrafian Empire. They finally managed to conquer the entire Farfa system. They've managed to conquer other planets from the Tablets Empire and the Yargel Empire, and even some of the planet Linus. So they really expanded to like proportions that we can't imagine. And we are currently living in the sixth age of the Shokrafian Empire. Currently, they are struggling with an energy crisis. Basically, their basic problem is that they invented a time-traveling technology during the fourth age, which is a great thing to do, I think. Like that's... Yeah, I mean, in our conversations, they actually compared time travel, like the discovery of time travel for them to our the discovery of the AI. Because they see that as a form of time travel because it speeds processes. So the problem is this technology is very resource intensive. And very quickly, they have completely depleted all their resources on their planets. So they started harvesting energy directly from the sun. And this sun is the Farfa sun. Notice that it's the same name of the deity, so they are basically sun worshippers. The Shokrafians. Farfaism is the official state religion of the Shokrafian Empire. What else? So so they're in an energy crisis because they're very gradually, slowly but surely, they're depleting their sun out of energy. So their sun is dimming. So they're suffering from a global cooling, actually, and this is prophesized in this very text. The Tablets of Holath has a mention of a future event called the cooling, and many historians and scholars of Shokrafian culture, they claim that there's a direct connection between this and the cooling, which made some calls to maybe rid of the Shokraf for making a wrong decision there, of actually directly hurting their god. They're basically killing their god. There's so much more to tell because, but I think this is enough for now, right?
A lot of information.
Yes. Yes.
Can we ask questions?
Let's open it up for questions. Here's the mic for the questions.
Fancy.
Yes, they have amazing wireless technology.
Okay, so my main question is, what was the incentive in the first place for time travel in the Shokrafian Empire?
I think mainly power and control. So in like human terms, we would probably describe the Shokrafian Empire as like a fascist autocracy. But it's like way more extreme than anything that we know. Like the most extreme version of that on Earth is like China, where the government like knows everything and can control a lot of things. But the Shokraf really has like direct access to every Shokrafian citizen's mind directly. And they're basically also functioning on like a hive mind. It's much more closer to an ant colony than to like a human civilization. So I think the main incentive for inventing time travel, I should probably also explain how time travel works for the Shokrafians, because it's not exactly what we imagine. They perform time travel through matter. So they have these very sophisticated devices that can calculate the movement of atoms. And they can manipulate matter in such a way that they basically reverse the movement of the atoms. So they can, like in a very simple terms, they can record the movement of atoms of a tree and then shoot a ray at this tree and make it younger, make it like degrow, or the other way around, make it grow faster. But this also allows for history manipulation. You can go back to an historical site and change some things up, and then you can make, for example, historical claims for some planets. And it makes it easier to manipulate your civilization to want to conquer this planet and to cooperate with the empire. So I believe this was the main incentive for time travel.
I want to know what's the average life expectancy for these people.
So it's very hard to measure because first of all, their sun is way larger than our own. So like a single cycle of their planet, and it's not one planet also, right? They're a civilization that is also, it's composed of many different species. So these are just the proto-Shokrafians. In modern Shokrafian, there are way more species. We actually started like researching into that, like right the way they look and like how their physiology. So I think it really depends. There are some Shokrafian beings that have really short life expectancies compared to us, and some that might live for example, the Shokraf. The Shokraf have lived through 3 ages now, since the 4th age till today, the 6th age. So this is like at least 100,000 years in Shokrafian years, which are longer than our own because their sun is larger. So it's like, yeah, so you have some beings that live forever, basically, and some beings that might live for a day.
Who is there, like, historical, religious, known figures, like their Jesus? Who is their Jesus?
It's actually like an interesting comparison because, of course, it's hard to compare, but like the religion is like surprisingly like not dissimilar to our own religion. So it's really interesting. So I would say Goareth is very like who's the main character of the Tablets of Holath, and he's also a prominent character in Book of Holes, which is the next translation project in this in the Shokrafian mythology. So he is basically like their Abraham or Moses. So like a very important prophet who talks directly to the deities. But I would say the monarch Uto, who united all civilizations into a singular empire that became the Shokrafian Empire, I would say he's like their Jesus in a way. Yeah.
How do they procreate?
So this is really interesting. So, so this is actually also mentioned in Book of Holes, but we
actually have a video.
So if you look at this picture over there, we can see the Prophet Goareth talking to the Prophet Gonisha, and as you can see, he has this like hole in the middle of his stomach. So that's his seed sac. Shokrafians have the proto-Shokrafians had seeds, and technically they can have a non-sexual procreation, because you can take one seed of one Shokrafian and one seed of another, and you put them in a womb of one of the Shokrafians or of another Shokrafian. So you don't even have to, and this was socially accepted. That usually you won't have the pregnancy yourself. You'll have like the father, the mother, and the birther. So you had to have a male seed and a female seed in order to procreate, but anyone could get pregnant. No, I think that because of their method of procreation, like getting pregnant accidentally is not a problem for them.
In the very very rare example where one Shokrafian leaves out a seed and the other Shokrafian stumbles and just falls on the seed, maybe.
Must have happened at least once. I agree.
In that case, they turn it into Shokrafian cocktails.
What drew you to translate and document it in a way?
Specifically the Shokrafian.
Yes.
So it's interesting. I have been basically in contact with the Shokrafians ever since 2005. So it's like 20 years by now. And I've been in contact with other civilizations as well, but like I think I've been in contact with the Shokrafians the longest. And I was always fascinated by their culture and history, especially the points where we see the similarities to our own. And they're like so alien, they're so far removed from us, but at the same time, we have a lot to learn from them, right? Because they have a history of hundreds of thousands of years, and we have like a very short history. So there's a lot of us to learn from them, especially from their mistakes. I think, it's like, especially because of what is going on now in the Shokrafian Empire, this whole global cooling thing, the resource crisis, I think it's like, there's a lot for us to learn from that, and I think it's good to make this information accessible to humans, so we could at least reflect on that and think about that together.
I have a question, if
Yes.
it's okay, regarding the translation process.
Yes, please.
You mentioned that translation is difficult because they are four-dimensional beings, and if I understood correctly, their writing system is, if it can be called that, three-dimensional.
Yes.
Now, what I imagine is an extraterrestrial civilization that has no eyes, for example, tries to translate one of our texts. They might have difficulties understanding a simple phrase like, I see.
True.
Or for now,
True.
but I mean it. Or for example, if they don't even have spoken language, something like, Your Honor, that's hearsay. They might not know. I mean, that may be difficult to answer from the top of your head right now, but have you encountered any particular difficulties in that regard?
So luckily for us, this is one of the things that actually makes it easier to approach the Shokrafian civilization compared to others. They have exactly the same senses as we do. They have the sense of touch, they have the sense of smell, they can hear, they can see, they can speak. So this makes it very easy for us, and also they invented writing as a form of documentation. So again, like because they carved their writing. That's true. So this was also like the source for the three-dimensional writing system. Originally, we also had three-dimensional writing system because we also carved our letters into tablets or walls or whatever, or stone. But once print was invented, we have moved completely to, even before print, right? With like, once we could normally write with like easier utensils that are not like grinding into walls.
A hammer and a chisel, basically. Like there is this very famous, very early human story that is basically chiseled into the walls of ancient Mesopotamia, which I find really interesting. But with the Shokrafians, I think they moved away from like the very physical version of that, right, and got more like digital with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, starting the Second Age, they already had like digital technology, of course, yeah. But I mean, there are other cultures, for example, the Argolites, that are not that didn't invent like writing systems. So it's much harder to approach them, and their set of senses is completely different. So luckily for us, the Shokrafians are similar enough to us, so we could actually interpret some of their history and texts.
You said the text is three-dimensional, so it's like X, Y, and Z, let's say.
Yes.
So how, like, I can understand how X and Y can function, but how does the Z, the curving into something from the beginning change?
So you have like a dimension of depth in the writing system, which also affects the meaning of a word or a letter or a sentence.
Like the deeper it gets, like the deeper.
I mean, this is a very simplified thing, but like also the writing system is based on stones. I think the most similar to that humans have is like kanji. So it's like a single stone has like a very specific meaning, but it can be manipulated in very different ways, like the way the shape is formed. As their writing system has advanced and technology has advanced, they also invented like very complex ways of changing physical forms and manipulating matter, and they also developed a very high sensitivity. So like maybe for us, we'll see a shape or a stone, it would just look like a circle to us. And another stone, it would look like the exact same circle, but like for Shokrafians, they might see actually different forms because they actually distinguish like very small details on the stones.
Wait, sorry for having so many questions, but then again, it was an interesting point here. She talked about the fact that, well, like sight is the most dominant sense in our body. humans. This is why writing, for example, is with the visual. But then again, are there Shokrafian dogs, or like dogs are like the most dominant sense is smelling? So the entire.
Actually, do you want to take this, because we just started research into like a Shokrafian fauna?
Yes. I just wanted to like add from before, differences that you mentioned that we would not perceive but would be very obvious for Shokrafians, like just the way in which direction the circle basically has been chiseled. Like if it has been chiseled like clockwise or counterclockwise, and that would already be a very different meaning for them. And in regards to the senses, we have just started our research in a very interesting area, the glades, that is comprised of a very dense and basically lightless forest, and then clearings that are inhabited by these keepers, which are mostly female Shokrafians, as I remember. Yes. And the fauna and the flora there is very different to what we are kind of used to, and like I think it gives a very good example of how there's like different. How life adapted differently to this planet, and like the original planet basically, and how it interacts with Farfa. And I think that also kind of applies to Shokrafians themselves. I'm not quite sure if they have like a heightened sense. I just what I know is that a lot of Shokrafians kind of blinded themselves to Farfa, because they felt his light to be too intense, and that was like they clothed their whole bodies, for example, because they felt their light was too scorching for them. And like the fauna, for example, the flora and the fauna in the forest and the glades has very clearly adapted to the lack of Farfa's light, and when it receives the light, it becomes really crazy. Like there's a flora that behaves like jellyfish, basically, that has like tendrils that kind of move around, or flowers that dance around to find the light of Farfa and stuff like that. Like just a lot more sentience in a way than we are used to from plants, and I found that really interesting and fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, and also actually, if you look here. You can see a Zafta, which is basically it covers the same function of like a fennec fox. It's like a desert fox, yeah, a fennec fox, yeah, exactly. So yeah, they have a lot of different types of animals. Actually, a lot of them are mentioned also in the books. They also had some like holy animals. They had 5 noble creatures of the land, which were creatures that also communicated with Farfa in different ways. And one of them is actually mentioned in the Tablets of Holath. So yeah, they have a very how would you call it? Diverse set of creatures, even during the first stage, but like especially today when they're like a multi-planetary civilization. All right, I think we'll move to your presentation, and then we can take up more questions.
So, hi, I'm Cleo. I'm the artistic director of this project. And my goal and my purpose was to figure out the Shokrafian history through their art. We were provided with several art pieces and like artifacts. I can't show the artifacts themselves because those are like classified by the Shokrafian Empire, but I can give you versions and like sketches that I made of those artifacts. Maybe to the next slide. Yes. So here we see like proto versions of the tablets that you see here. And the interesting part about that is that the Shokrafians have like a very intricate and kind of alien color language and like symbolism language that it was interesting to find ways to work around. Like I remember Guy and I had an interesting conversation with this sketch here because I wanted to symbolize here that there's blood flowing. And the way we symbolize blood is through red, but in the Shokrafian art, it's green. And we weren't exactly sure if the blood like actually is green, like when we looked at the art, or if it was like a symbolic green because the proto-Shokrafians were touched by Farfa. Like this is the kind of stuff where you have to make artistic choices. Like the tablets here that you see are sort of restored from the Shokrafian tablets originally, and those tablets were also used as a sort of playing cube or maybe a divination cube, and you could roll it like a six-sided die, basically. And yeah, I had to sort of figure out what the colors that the Shokrafians assigned to certain symbols or like feelings meant to us. Like a good example is this scene here that is very brutal and very violent. And ultimately, I decided to restore the background in a red color because it was the farthest away from the green color of Farfa. Like Farfa's color is green, and red is like the direct opposite of that. And that would symbolize like sort of danger and pain and heartache and like something brutal and something that should not happen under Farfa's light, basically. So yes, we go to the next slide. Here are also different versions of the tablets here that also show a little bit of different interpretations of the scenes themselves. Like here, for example, there were originally flames of Farfa's light, and then ultimately I decided against implementing those, like restoring those, because I felt it was modeling the scene itself. So it's always like a bit of a struggle to figure out, okay, what do you want to restore and implement, and what do you want to leave out, basically. So yes.
Also, I'd just say it's really interesting to see here, like we assume that this guy, like the main character in both these art pieces, is the Prophet Goareth, but here we can actually see his face.
Yes.
So it made us actually question when we went through these if this is actually Goareth or is this a scene of like someone else, because there are other scenes of people chasing people or of someone beating up someone else.
Yes.
So it's like we need to make sure that like this is actually Goareth, but like I think there are interpretations showing Goareth's face, because it was assumed that people at the time couldn't see his face, but he actually had a face. It just couldn't be seen. So in art depictions, it's possible to show it because it's not necessarily from the perspective of the people of the time.
Yes. So yes, this is a very good point. Like ultimately, I decided, yes, this is a kind of recreation of what the cube could look like. We are also working on a more sophisticated version of that, that we hopefully will be able to upload on the websites too. That so people can really like interact with it in a three-dimensional setting, basically. So yes, the next one. And these were really interesting to me because these are kind of like depictions of the different prophet castes that lived in the First Age, when Goareth had like his height, basically. And what I found really interesting is the fact that they all are completely covering themselves, basically from head to toe, because the prophets were sort of intimidated by Farfa's light, and like they felt it hurt them, their eyes and their bodies, and that's why they clothed themselves in completely black clothing. And in contrast, you can see that Goareth is actually naked, and that was like also a huge discrepancy between them, basically, that Goareth was like that openly walking in Farfaist light, opposed to them. And it's also interesting to me, if you go to the next slide, that in the depictions in the tablets themselves, their designs are also very simplified. But in the description of the text, there's a lot more detail about them. Like this is the Taboo caste, I think. And they are seen as sort of inventors and a very strong and physical kind of caste. And they adorn themselves with lots of trinkets and like designs and mechanisms that they self-design. And in the tablets themselves, it's not really that obvious because the style in that time was still very primitive. And they, like, again, also used very primitive tools, and they hammered and chiseled those designs basically in stone. So there was not a lot of details they could do. If we could go to the next one. Here we have the Go caste, and what was the other one? The Ho, or yeah. And the Go caste was more of a builder's caste, more of a kind of lower caste, you could say. And they were the ones who built the cities and the stages where prophets would live and like speak to Farfa. And their clothing was a lot more simplified and like adorned with jewelry that they say themselves like created, and they were a lot more primitive compared to the Ho caste. It was more of a ruling caste, and they like I felt when I was looking at the descriptions and the original simplified artwork. Had a bit of like, you know, pompous Baroque style sensibilities. Like you kind of had the feeling they were exaggerating their frame and form a little bit, and they were openly displaying their seed sack because they didn't fear basically that somebody could hurt them because they just were that confident in their caste. And those kind of difference I found really interesting. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the whole were like the elite caste because the city is called Holath, and it was formed by the Prophet Holath, who was a Ho, of course. So it means that the Ho caste, they view themselves as the rulers of the city, and all other castes are like lower. And also they were like you were talking about like the openly presented seed sack. They were known to be hedonists who would do very crazy sex parties in their stages that are depicted in some detail in the later passages of Book of Holes. So if you're into this kind of stuff, stay tuned.
Salacious details, yes. Also, what I found interesting here, just a moment, in the simplified artwork, the Ho caste actually does not have the sort of mesh face mask that they actually wear, which I think was an artistic choice to better portray their facial expressions in those scenes. So yes, we can continue on. This is a depiction of the thank you. I don't know why I'm blanking right now. And those were basically the number counters, the math people, the math cast. Like they were
the STEM.
the STEM field, yes. And with them, I found it really interesting that they had those headpieces that depicted various geometric shapes, maybe even shapes that we don't really recognize or could actually perceive. So there were some really interesting three-dimensional shapes that I couldn't even really figure out. So I did my best to sort of interpret them. And basically, it was like one thing, it was like a stylistic choice for them, like a sort of fashion statement, but it also denoted like their rank and what kind of actual occupation they had. So, yes. And here we see the Gufam, like Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they were a sort of nomadic people outside of the city of Holath. And with them, I found really interesting that they. We figured out that the very wide clothing that they wear, they can actually use as tents. They sort of wear it as a protective clothing during sandstorms, and they can also pitch it as tents in the desert, and which I found really interesting that they had like this very sophisticated kind of fashion. Yeah, they wear their house, where they were like on long hunting trips and good. Yeah. Yes. And here we have what we mentioned earlier, different depictions of Goareth's no face, because in the text it is said that his face was badly damaged, and then he spoke to Farfa and pleaded with them to sort of remove his face, and he still has a face. He has a mouth, he has eyes and ears, but others cannot perceive it, basically. And there are different depictions in the Shokrafian art, and it's very interesting how different ages kind of dealt with it. The most common one is the sort of like smudged or like you would even say glitched version of it that we can also see in the tablets here, where it feels like somebody has kind of digitally wiped away the data of his face. And I found that really interesting because I mean, I'm not sure, but I kind of thought that could be like a bit of a manipulation thing, but...
You mean by the modern Shokrafian Empire?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I don't want to go into too much conspiracy here.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I think it's also important to mention we are translating like a lot of mythological and religious texts. There are many versions of the Tablets of Holath, and we have translated the official state-approved version from the Shokrafian Empire. So it's like, take it with a grain of salt. It's basically Shokrafian propaganda. But they hear everything, don't worry.
Yeah.
Look, they're one of the most sophisticated and technologically advanced civilizations in recorded history. If they wanted us dead, they would have done so already. So I think we're fine.
So far so good, yes.
You never know.
You never know.
But yes, these are some interesting things that I found while researching Shokrafian arts and that I wanted to share. Yes.
Amazing. Woo! Let's open it up for questions.
Yes.
Any questions?
You said, you answered the question if they're going to kill us. You said no. I'm reassured now. But you said there's still much we don't know about them. And what's the biggest riddle or riddles that we don't know yet and we're about to research and discover?
I think the biggest mysteries currently are actually the civilizations of the Second Age. Because the civilizations of the Second Age, unlike the civilizations of the First Age, they actually survived their age into the Third Age. So some of them are the ancestors of the actual Shokrafians. And I think there was, like Cleo said, there was a lot of manipulation done by the Empire, especially on artifacts from the Second Age. So it's really hard to tell what happened to the civilizations that are mentioned in Second Age literature, and we have no traces for after the Third Age. So we have some traces from the Second Age, but not from the Third Age. But it was nowhere described in any literature that they were actually extinguished or destroyed by any other civilization. So it's like we have no idea what happened to many different civilizations from the Second Age. This I would say the biggest mystery currently we're trying to figure out. Yeah.
Do they have something similar or comparable to the concept of love?
That's also a question for you.
So it's really interesting. I couldn't find an equivalent to the word love. Like as the translator, I found many words describing like affection and also like respect, desire, but nothing about love. And it's actually interesting that like the most, let's say, the most prevalent characters in Shokrafian mythology are actually, they didn't have, like for example, the Prophet Goareth, he had no children. He had many disciples that continued his teachings and were parents themselves who taught their children the teachings of the Prophet. But the Prophet itself had no offspring. And also the monarch Uto had no offspring. This is why he had a heir. The Shokraf was not his direct offspring. It was actually from another planet. Yeah, it's interesting. We see stories of like couples and even families, and we can see affection between characters, but we don't have like proper, you would call it like love stories, like we have on Earth. But again, this is only the literature that we have found. There's like, again, I can't stress it enough, this is a civilization spanning hundreds of thousands of years. We barely scratched the surface, I believe. But so far we didn't find anything remotely similar to the concept of love in Shokrafian literature. Maybe it was also a taboo. Maybe also that like love existed there in a very similar way that it exists on Earth, or in different ways, but we couldn't find any mention of it so far.
So these artifacts you saw had been like 4-dimensional or 3-dimensional, and
the artifacts have been 3-dimensional mostly. Like it's mostly been like, because it's very early art, like tablets carved and chiseled, and like sculptures and like many dice, like these dice-shaped cubes that can be used as a sort of toy or divination tool. Like a lot of, I found it really interesting that there was not really 2-dimensional art. Like there was not like our equivalent to like a paper and drawing on it. It was really more like on very robust and 3-dimensional material, like stone, wood, stuff like that. Yeah. Metal, yes.
So there are many more versions of the things you saw.
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't say like many more, but there were different interpretations of it, and I felt like they were given to us as a sort of a way to give us a bit of perspective and like a bit of insight into how the history has been like viewed in different ages, basically. We received a couple of very early depictions and also some from the 2nd and the 3rd age. And I just found it interesting that, like, for example, the face of Goareth was often depicted differently in various ages.
How does actual art look like?
That is... Yeah, it's interesting because the colors are different to ours because they have different pigments. And I had to sort of translate the strange color variations that Shokrafians can create into colors that we can actually perceive. And like the sort of discrepancy there, and also understanding the symbolism behind them and translating them to colors that we understand. That was very challenging. That was very interesting, yes.
And when it comes to dimensions?
Like I said, it was mostly 3 dimensions. Like when compared, I would compare it mostly to like very early human art, where there was a lot more physicality in the artworks, and compared to like Baroque, where we have mostly paintings, for example, or like statues. But yeah.
Okay.
Corey, you had a question?
Okay, okay, how do I? Are there, okay, so the senses of us humans are hearing and smelling. And are there any senses that are exclusive to them or that may be as important as our senses are for us?
I mean, I feel like there is, like, I don't know, like when I read a lot of the text, I had the feeling there was this sort of interaction with the light of Farfa that felt a bit like a sense in itself. I don't know, maybe you have more insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, in the text itself, we hear, we basically can read that the prophet had the ability to also see without his eyes, to hear without his ears, to speak without his mouth. And all of this was done through the prophecy, through basically Farfa's vibrations. I think this is how it's depicted in the text. So in a way, like you can say that like every sense had like a doubling effect. So you could sense things not only through the physicality of the world, but also through mediation created by communicating with Farfa. I would say, due to the fact that they are time-traveling beings, and they're four-dimensional, I would say that they have a very different sense of time to our own, because they can perceive different things like simultaneously, unlike us. So I would say, I don't know if it's a sense, but it's like another element of their perception that we do not possess.
Are there any, I don't know if I would call them characters in Shokrafian history, which it is not allowed to depict in art, kind of like the Prophet Muhammad or Allah or whatever?
I mean, for me, it's hard to say, because we did get the state sanctions art, basically. So it would have probably already been kind of like they would have erased characters that we were not allowed to see. So it's hard to say, right? Like, we don't know if they altered the text, and there were originally characters that that are present in other like versions of the Tablets of Holath. So could be, right? Could be.
I mean, I think also like the deities. I think these were the main characters that were erased. Like, we usually don't see the deities depicted in like a deitic way. We usually see them like in a very physical way. Like Zhao is always depicted as a huge ocean. Yaketh is just like a huge stretch of land. Like, we don't actually see their deitic form, which would be, I guess, like some kind of like a Lovecraftian horror thing, right? that like I can't even imagine like how these deities would look like. But it's very clear that they had a physical form that was not only like their conceptual form of like land or water, but like these are not depicted in Shokrafian art.
This is the one that we get, that we received from the archives and the Empire. Could be there are depictions out there. Don't know.
Is it like what these artifacts that they produce? Do they have art per se, or is it always serving something else, like worshipping or documentation? Like,
I mean, I would say art does always have a purpose for some reason. Like if it is even just to entertain or to be beautiful or to just express something, it always has some kind of purpose. Like, an artist does something and they usually don't just, I don't know, like like randomly flick some paint somewhere and then call it done. It's like art always has like some sort of intention. And I, from my artistic perspective, think that there definitely is always some purpose. I wouldn't say there's always a religious purpose, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have so much to add. Like I agree. Yeah, it's probably both religious and cultural. Like it's important to note there are multiple Farfaist religions. There's the state Farfaist religion for the Shokrafian Empire, but there are many Farfaists outside of the Shokrafian Empire that have a different set of beliefs, and most of them actually see later Shokrafian mythological stories involving Farfa to be like heresy. So I think it's always like you said, they always have a purpose. It can be religious, it can be historical, it can be propaganda, and it can also just be that like people of the time wanted to document what's going on. Yeah,
but it's never for beauty itself, like just to express some, because I think it makes sense, because again, as they were talking, there is no love, so also maybe because of that.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe you could you can join the research team and help us figure this out. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, what kind of drugs do they use, and do you have some artifacts from that?
I just have like a little bit of a comment to that, and then I'll give it to you. Like I said, we are currently researching the forest, the glades, and there are plants there that definitely have some sort of psychotropic like elements. And I'm not sure yet, because we just started with the research, and I'm like mostly on the art side, so you maybe have more insight of that. But I would be very surprised if there was not some element of drug use there that they were used for.
Yeah, I mean, even in the Tablets of Holath themselves, like there's in the very last few scripts, they're talking about like the market of Duosh. And in the market, it's mentioned that there are hallucination generators. And in later passages in Book of Holes, actually, we have some characters using these drugs, and we see the effects of some of these drugs. So, yeah, definitely they had drugs. It seems most of them were hallucinogenic, so like a lot of psychedelics, I guess, if like we need to translate it to human terms. Like perception-altering drugs, but also, I believe, they had some body-altering drugs. So the drugs will alter the way your body functions. Like all drugs do that, but like in a much more extreme way that will completely change your perception of reality and might even change you physically forever. We have in a later passage in Book of Holes a mention of a prophet and a demon doing drugs together, and during this mutual drug use, the prophet has a prophecy, and through the prophecy they become one entity. Probably the drugs had like a part in it, because we don't have other depictions of like entities becoming one outside of this instance. So we believe that like the kinds of drugs they used were not only mind altering but also body altering.
I wanted to ask, do the Shokrafians have a similar view on childhood as we have?
Ooh, I think that is a question for you. Definitely.
In which sense, I would ask?
As treating younger entities as cuter, as more vulnerable, and so on.
I think so. We have very few characters in first age literature that we encounter as children, and we see their journey throughout their lives. But two notable characters are the Prophet Goareth, that he was raised by the woodkeepers, and they seem to be very kind to him and very nurturing. But it's also hard to say, because they are just like nurturing creatures in their nature. And we had a Gufam who was adopted by the woodkeepers, Branf, and she she actually had like a very harsh childhood in the glades of Ancash. And from a very young age, she was actually treated in a way like an adult, and she was expected to do like things that usually you don't expect a child to do. So I think it's unclear because we don't have enough documentations from the first age for actual like young characters.
Thanks.
Right. Should we continue?
Yes. All right. Music. All right, Shiri and Ido, please join us. Okay. Are you a Republican or a Democrat?
I'll be the Republican.
Okay.
I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Southerner. We'll just say a few words. So this is the first presentation that we're both ever giving about Shokrafian music. Yeah. I mean, I can only say about myself, I've been researching this music for very little time, only like 3 years. Most ethnomusicologists usually spend a lifetime on a single piece of music because kind of like how Guy mentioned that the Shokrafian perception of time is very, very different from human. It's very, very hard to... Wait, now let's just check. Yeah, okay. It's very hard to really to have any kind of understanding of how the Shokrafians treated their music. So So basically, Shiri and I were both astro-musicologists. Each one of us focuses on a different thing. I'm currently taking kind of the more religious ritual music of the caste of Go, which Goareth, the prophet, belonged to. And I'm kind of trying to understand how the music played a part in the rituals. And Shiri, do you want to...
Yeah, I'm dealing with the question of notation in Shokrafian music and how to translate it into singing. I'm also in touch with some entities from this planet in order to understand how to actually sing it. Of course, they have a different physiology, which makes them produce other type of sounds. Maybe Guy could explain.
First of all, the lips of the Proto-Shokrafians, unlike our lips that can stretch like, let's say, up to like a half a centimeter or a centimeter from our base face. They could stretch their lips up to like 3 or even 5 centimeters. So this means they could produce vowels also in different directions. So their lips could go up or down or straight or to the sides. And this would, of course, affect the sounds.
Yes, so we humans don't have currently the ability of really imitating Shokrafians. I have my own dream of having, like at some point, a plastic surgery in order to kind of, but at the moment it's not really possible. I mean, there is no such thing, but maybe, yeah. So I do what I can. Of course, also their hearing is different because just sound waves work obviously different over there, and so it's not like what I hear from Shokrafian music is necessarily what they hear. But yeah, I think the notation system is pretty interesting as it is how you say charut, curved,
Inscribed.
and in a way the curving also shows you
Carved.
Yeah.
It shows us how to pronounce, and like as we feel the curve, we feel how our mouth structure should be. So I'm really dealing with this type of notation and trying to understand. Of course, for me, I read notes very, 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 very slow comparing to them. It's also connected to like the structure of your fingers that can allow you to read notes faster, better, with higher sensitivity, and so on. But yeah, I'm in a slow process of reading notation and trying to understand how does it sound, how can we pronounce it.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's one example. Very convincing performance from the little I know about Shokrafian singing. Now we'll skip to the Shokrafian Lament, which is actually the only piece of music in this, I don't know what to call it, collection, which is a part of the Shokrafian Empire's archive. So it's basically a piece of Shokrafian music as it would be meant for the Shokrafians to listen to. I think it's actually their national anthem, but that's not quite clear to me yet at this point. Yeah, so Guy, can you... So this would be maybe the closest, it's a non-human rendition, it's a Shokrafian rendition. So that's just part of the whole piece. The whole piece, it lasts a few weeks, from my understanding, and they also time travel to different moments in the piece. But something that I tried to do was actually to kind of go to the essence of it, a bit like what Cleo was talking about reconstructing. So I made a human reconstructable version of this. It's a track called Human Lament. And I think that this lament was originally played by the cast of Go.
And it was a lament for, I forget which leader it was. Do you remember? Gufams. And how this lament worked was that there was one person who was basically playing an instrument, which is a bit like a one-stringed violin. And this person was kind of like a musician of the cast. And while he was playing, anybody who wanted to could kind of like barge in and give some kind of cry to their lament, to their sadness for the passing of Gufams. So you'll kind of hear these things that are coming and going together with this constant string playing, which I don't really know how to describe. So we'll listen to a human lament. Yeah, thank you. And we'll listen to one more religious piece of music, which is actually a joyful one. It's so I think Guy mentioned the stages and the fact that this prophet of God, they were this caste of God, they were prophets, and all of their religious life was taking place on these stages. So this is actually it's I don't know what to call it, arrangement of mind to this kind of joyful, celebratory religious song. And so you can hear a few high priests who are singing together. And in the background, you can hear a crowd that is kind of encouraging them and leading them on. So now we'll listen to that. Shiri, do you want to...
I think we could listen to one more vocal piece, which is it's a type of a canon, and the text. What's important about that? The text was originally said by the prophets, Am I correct? Yeah, and this is why the vocal pronunciation and the whole vocality of it is a bit different.
That's it.
Questions?
I hope that's not a silly question, but
There are no silly questions.
I just you might hold off on that. Do you imagine that making Shokrafian music on Earth might sound a little different? I'm not saying it wasn't beautiful, but do you think it might sound a bit different on Earth due to the fact that our atmosphere is structured a certain way? For example, if our atmosphere was made out of helium, it would probably sound more like this when we talk. So is that something you have to consider when making these pieces or thinking about them?
Yeah, 100%, yeah. And that was the kind of the question for me, if I should try to translate as it sound there for them, or to translate what I hear and what I understand from that. And yeah, eventually I went to try to translate what we understand from that, but with the type of you know, as I will get more deeper in the text, I hope I could make a combination between the both options, and to catch also some cultural and hidden messages in the singing, and in that way I could kind of create a combination in which we would hopefully understand in a few ways the music as they do understand.
What would be the attributes that you think are important for the sculpture? Like, what are like certain pitches, certain rhythms? I mean, how do you?
So I can answer that a little bit.
Thank you.
But so from what I understand, so there was one kind of you could call it a musical notation kind of form, I think in the Second Age, which I think was based on the sensation of heat, actually. So like it would kind of be it would be the equivalent of like a certain note might vibrate in a way which kind of feels warmer to you. And I think that actually now during the global cooling, I think that also one of the ways in which they're trying to deal with this is actually by making very, very warm music.
Hello, fellow researchers. Our departments have not crossed that much yet. So my question is, what I found really interesting when looking at Shokrafian art and like the text itself was this this vibration element that they have a lot with Farfa. And I wondered if that was like something that you saw like in your research too, like this sense of sound waves and vibrations, and was that a part of the music, or was it more abstract than that?
So from what I know, during these religious gatherings, which also involved music, I think there was also a worshipping aspect, which maybe had something to do with these with the other sense, which I think that you mentioned, which I think that might be more connected to the vibrational aspect.
What is their 80s music?
It's very tempting as I can make the equivalent as when I visit in a new city, and I always try to think, which neighborhood is this comparing to Tel Aviv? You know, this type of stuff. And yeah, it's really tempting to try to find the 80s music. But I personally have a fear that if I will search for the 80s music, I will start to see Shokrafian music in too much of like a human prisma. So, but I almost can't avoid that. So it's a really actually big difficulty, like a professional, ethical difficulty in my research. Yeah.
What kind of four-dimensional instruments they use?
So I mentioned the one-stringed violin or string instrument, and I think that this instrument actually also had reproductive purposes. I think it was also used as for courting rituals. So yeah, so it was somehow involved, I think, also within the cast of Go, of course, because I've only been researching that. It was somehow also involved in reproduction, I think. But to answer your question about other instruments. So from what I know, there's the part about the cube where in the Tablets of Holath, where inside there's like the committee of the high colaphum. Yeah. So from what I know, this colaphum was also, it was vibrating in a sense. It was kind of a musical instrument in its own that inside these politicians, what you could call them, or the leaders of different castes were holding meetings. So yeah, so I guess they had this idea also of buildings as musical instruments.
I think this was the official presentation of our research. Thank you everyone for coming, for listening, for your great questions. And again, this is an open source project. Feel free to contact us at research@shufu.studio. You can also look for us on the social medias. We have an Instagram called Book of Holes. We have an X page. I don't know how many people here use X. Yeah, you know, freedom of speech, dude. No, we don't have a TikTok. We might in the future. Sorry. The fact that we don't have no, I don't think so. I'm sure there are Chinese researchers looking into the Shokrafian Empire as well. I would love to work with Chinese researchers as well. Like we're non-discriminatory. We're very open and all for inclusivity and diversity in this project. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming, and I hope to see you in future events, and I hope this sparked your curiosity to read our translation for the Tablets of Holath, and please to listen to the entire album, which is amazing. And to check out Cleo's art outside of this project, because she's a really amazing artist, and also Ido and Shiri are amazing musicians and composers, and you should check out their art. And great astro-musicologists, and So as far as I know, there are no means for us to physically interact with the Shokrafians. Maybe in the future there will be such methods. So unfortunately, no field trips to the Shokrafian Empire. I'm sorry. All right. Thanks, everyone, and we'll continue. If you're interested, there are some. I think we'll take a break for some snacks, but then we'll continue with some. But I think then we'll continue with some free improv and reading from the actual translated text. Thank you.